Welcome back to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to start by saying thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to say thank you to our platinum sponsors, including Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. Camp Mobile, where teams communicate better. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. And Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going out to the West Coast today, my home state of Oregon, and we're going to visit with Kate Williams. Kate's the Assistant Athletic Director at the Catlin Gabel School in Portland, Oregon, and she's got some great things to share with us today. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me this morning.
Oh, we're very excited. Glad that the West Coast fires have kind of settled down for a while. Well, as you know, the life of an athletic director is very busy, especially these days. So we're going to jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to college, and maybe how a love of sports got you into this business.
Sure, be happy to. So I am a native Oregonian, and I actually attended Catlin Gabel School from 7th to 12th grade and was a three-sport athlete there for all 4 years. Had the opportunity to win 4 state championships as a soccer player and a couple as a track and field athlete, but basketball was my true kind of passion. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to pursue that at Wheaton College in Massachusetts, which is a little Division III school. So that took me to the East Coast, and I was able to compete and play for them for 4 years. I had an injury my first year, unfortunately, but for 4 years. And then started coaching for them as a first assistant immediately following graduation. So I was the first assistant there for 3 years, and really felt pretty lucky being under the head coach. I felt like she did a great job exposing me to the coaching world, would go to the NCAA tournaments, women tournaments, and be able to take advantage of some of the coaching clinics that they offer there while the tournament's going on. And also during that time, I was getting my master's in social work. And so it was pretty fun time and lots of learning going on for me. And then I kind of had a calling to come back to Portland, to the West Coast. And so did that, and always felt very connected to Catlin Gabel and to my experiences there, and was kind of just hoping and waiting for the opportunity to coach the women's basketball team there. And after a few years of settling back in Portland, that opportunity came about, and lucky enough to have been coaching the girls team now for, this will be my 7th season as the women's head coach at Catlin Gabel. And in that time too, just kind of how things work out, the role of assistant athletic director opened up, and I think my strong connection to the school, my long history of being an athlete and involved in athletics, and also working with students and children as a social worker, kind of gave me this unique profile to move into athletic administration. And so I've taken some courses and some classes with the OSAA, and have really loved the position, and just being around those student athletes again, being back at Catlin and growing in that way.
It's always, I think, very special when athletes, coaches can come back to their own school and so see it maybe through fresh eyes. What were some things that you noticed upon returning from coaching collegiately? What were some things that you noticed at your alma mater that, wow, we do a really good job here? And for those our listeners, Catlin Gabel is kind of a legendary school in Oregon, a very successful program. But Kate, what were some things that you immediately saw that, hey, we do a real good job, but I think we can do even better?
I think we do a really, really good job there, and our coaching staff does a really good job of wanting to make sure that we know and that we understand kind of the whole student athlete. It is academics first at our school, and athletics second. So our coaches aren't just like, oh, we're coming into the gym or onto the field just for that practice time. They're connecting with the kids. They're making sure that their academics are going well. They're making sure that if they need a little extra support, or if they're struggling in a way, that they can be a resource for them, that they can be, a strong figure for them to lean on if they need to throughout their high school career. So
you talked a little bit about some of your coaches, and in our profession, we always preach, mentoring and leadership. Who are some of your other mentors, either growing up or maybe people that you've worked with or worked for? I always like to use the phrase, I still hear the voices of my mentors when I'm talking to coaches or people. So whose voices do you still hear?
I still hear my college basketball coach, who then I coached under, so altogether, we had about a seven-year kind of relationship. I still talk to her. I was just text messaging with her this morning, and I still hear her voice, and she's at University of Hartford right now coaching. But that's one that I hear constantly. And actually the soccer, high school soccer coach that I played under at Catlin, his voice is kind of constantly coming in and out too. So I enjoy that kind of way of thinking about it. So, but I've been really fortunate to have a lot of great mentors and a lot of great teachers. That a lot of teachers I had at Catlin Gabel, I hear those voices too, and coaches as well. And so, and Sandy Lou, I was working with her right at Catlin. She's athletic director, and I think she does a great job kind of continuing to expose me to athletic administration and giving me opportunities to learn within this field as well. So
I appreciate you sharing that. Let's go and jump right in and talk about COVID. Certainly it's had an impact since, appearing, basically last spring and wiping out spring sports. This fall, we've seen a variety of responses across the country. Some states have canceled seasons. Some states have moved the sports around. Others have just said business as usual. Hey, we're going to play. In Florida, we delayed for a month and then, started back up with, I guess you would say the traditional fall season sports, but we still have schools now that are just getting back, and we're recording this for our listeners. This is October 1st. Hopefully things have changed by the time this airs, but Kate, what's happening right now in Oregon? What's happening at Catlin Gabel with regard to return to school as well as return to play?
Sure. So right now, Catlin Gabel is fully remote. The governor set out some matrix that need to be met before schools can return to in-person learning. So we are remote. We are a preschool through 12th grade school. So our little preschool can meet on campus, but our K through 12 is all remote. The OSAA has kind of shifted things as well and moved them to seasons. So our hope is that season 2 would be the start of our winter sports, and everything would run for 7 weeks. Season 3 would be our traditional fall sports, and they would run for 7 weeks. And then at the very end, season 4 would be our traditional spring sports that would end a little bit later in June than they typically do. So everyone's just kind of shifted for right now. We are able to, and we are fortunate enough at Catlin to have the space to do it, and the resources to do it. We are able to bring very small cohorts on campus and do some conditioning stuff outside for our athletes. So we are able to do that for our school. So I think everyone is just kind of waiting to see what the numbers do, to see about that season 2 and starting the traditional winter sports back up. So a little bit of a waiting game still in Oregon.
And I know a couple other states are following that model. New York, for example, just this week, they started up their fall sports after a long, long delay. I'm curious, what's been the response of, your student athletes and your parents? How are they taking all of these changes?
Yeah, I think we all want to be back on the field, and we all want to be back on the gym, the student athletes especially, and us as administrators wanting to give them that opportunity. But we also understand the gravity of the situation in the pandemic, and we want to do it in a way that keeps everyone safe. So I think our community understands that. And they're grateful for the small opportunities to come on campus, and they're just waiting to see as well. And I think something that Sandy and I felt really good about is we developed a virtual athletic curriculum, and that was actually in collaboration and with the help of athletic directors and coaches on a national scale, that we can provide our student athletes when we aren't able to bring them on campus and have them play. But I would say that our community in general has been very understanding.
That's great. Again, they don't have any choice, but it's nice that they're not, yelling and screaming. Let's go and talk a little bit about that. I had a chance to, trade some emails with you and Sandy, your AD, about your curriculum that you created. Share that if you can, kind of some broad brushstrokes of how you created it, what it actually is, and then again, we want to make sure we give our listeners a chance to get in touch with you if they have more questions about that. So tell us about this virtual athletic curriculum.
Sure. So we're thinking back in the springtime, and I think much like everyone, we're just trying to piece things together, and so we had our spring coaches sending workouts out, finding ways to connect, sending videos out, but we felt coming in the fall time that we really needed some sort of plan, because we didn't really know what we would be able to do or not do. So at Catlin, we use a lot of the principles of 3-dimensional coaching. And so we thought about, all right, those second and third dimensions, that kind of emotional and mental side of the student athlete doesn't probably get the attention during the season that all the coaches would hope. I think even I as a coach, you're like, okay, we're going to do goals every day, and we're going to do, we're going to focus on the communication and leadership and all that stuff. And then you get in the season, you're like, oh, well, I gotta prep for that press break, or I gotta get, and with no ill will or anything, some of those things sometimes get pushed to the side, and they're very important. They're very important in the development of a student athlete, those emotional and mental side of the game. So that's kind of where we started from. And then we it's a 12-week curriculum that has themes. So each week is a theme, such as motivation, empathy, giving and receiving feedback, communication. And they're actually click and go lessons. It's a Google kind of spreadsheet, and you can click on week 1, lesson 3, and it's, motivation and goal setting, and you open it up and there's a whole lesson plan. Again, some are written by Sandy and I, and but most we sent it out and made this a collaborative effort with ADs across the country, which gives it a nice kind of diverse viewpoint too of how a lot of different ADs or coaches might approach motivation and leadership. So it's also, I think, pretty flexible, which is, I think, needed in this time. You could run it as a 5-day-a-week curriculum if you're not able to be on campus at all with your student athletes. Or for us, we're having our coaches, run it 2 or 3 days a week with their team over Zoom, and then they're on campus 2 days a week in those small cohorts. And it can even be used if, return to play in those traditional seasons, but your team's really struggling with motivation. So let me pull a couple of those lesson plans and let's sit as a team and work on how you motivate yourself and what might motivate your teammates. So we developed that. We've spoke about it with the OSA and the Oregon Coaches Association too, and just I think our administration sent it to some independent schools, and so just trying to have it be a resource. It's just another resource we want athletic directors and coaches to have during this really kind of difficult and unpredictable time.
That is so cool that you guys put that together. And as you mentioned, it was a collaborative effort with people contributing from across the country. How can our listeners, follow up with you and get some more information about this? I guess, what's your email?
Yeah, sure. And I do want to mention too, we work with Diana Katau, a consultant at the beginning. She kind of helped with the broader, framework of it too. So I want to make sure she gets in there as well. But email is great. Like I said, it's a Google link. So I just send you the link and it's ready to go. And like I said, we want this just to be a resource for anyone to use. So Williams K at Catlin.edu, and Catlin is CATLIN.edu, and I could send it on your way.
So that was Williams K at Catlin.edu.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And listeners, I encourage you to follow up. Kate, this next question, may sound a little bit tricky, but I'm curious. Again, I'm born and raised in Oregon, and spent not quite half of my early career there as a teacher and a coach. So I'm very familiar with the state. Was just back this summer for 10 days, seeing family and college friends and that sort of thing. You're close to, you're not in Portland, but you're at Portland. So, you probably know where I'm going with this next question. The events of last spring in Minneapolis and Atlanta, recently in, Wisconsin, have really brought to the forefront this idea of, social awareness, social justice. So I've been asking our athletic directors, what are some things that we can do as ADs, with our kids, our coaches, our community, if you will? What are some things that we can do better with regards to this idea of, social issues, social awareness?
Yeah, I think just giving our student athletes a safe space to share any thoughts that they have or talk about any of the issues, to make sure that we're listening and just listening and learning ourselves. I would say are probably the two crucial things, and continuing to educate, ourselves and the teams. And there are great resources out there. Our OSA has some great resources on their website. Catlin Gabel has diversity inclusion office that we work closely with. But I think creating that safe space and just being there and listening are pretty crucial.
Yeah. No, great advice. I appreciate you sharing that. We've also been asking our ADs, what's your favorite part of the job? And of course, they always answer, oh, it's the kids, as they should. It is about the kids. But in addition to that, beyond that, what are some of your favorite things about being at Catlin Gabel? What gets you excited about coming to work each day?
I do have to say that the kids, I know you said it and everyone did, but I, I would be remiss if I didn't say the student athletes, and sometimes too, just watching their growth. We're fortunate enough, it's a kindergarten or preschool through 12th, and some of the kids have gone there that whole entire time. Athletics runs 6th through 12th grade, so sometimes we're seeing an athlete from when they're 5 or 6, but really involved with the athletic department in 6th grade all the way to 12th grade, and just to see them grow in their leadership, in their communication. And I think of course there's going to be some learning moments, or some losses or some failures, and kind of being there and being that support and helping them understand that those are moments to grow from, and that will make them a stronger student athlete. So I think I really enjoy just being a part of that and observing that. And then I always think it's great, that energy of a game day, and going down and making sure the field is just just right form, or line just right, or you're in the gym and the guy at the volleyball net right there, and making sure it's good and the signs are up, and making sure that you're creating that atmosphere for the students, that it makes them feel special and part of a bigger school community wide thing.
Oh, absolutely. That game day experience, as you described it, the field, the gym, there's no other job like that. Somebody who works in an office, they don't get that. We get that probably 2 or 3 times a day sometimes when you have multiple games. So that's
you're there
great.
and you go, then the game happens, you got the crowd, and of course, as like athletic director, you're watching the crowd and the officials and your coach, and you kind of have a lot of different things you're watching at once. But those moments where you can just, that senior hits the 3-pointer from the corner, and you've been watching that senior work on his shot for 4 years, and then he has this moment and the crowd goes wild. Those are really special memories to be a part of. And
Exactly. The crowd goes wild. Okay.
so
Well, Kate, it's always great to visit with somebody from Oregon. This has been, very special. I do have to ask a question: ducks or beavers?
I was wondering if you were going to ask that. I have to go with ducks. We're a duck family. My cousin ran for them for a long time, so we got to go with ducks.
Okay, well, I grew up in a family that worshipped at the altar of the Oregon Ducks, and ended up. I married my wife's a beaver. She ran cross country and track for them, so we have our own civil war in the family. But
house divided, right? So.
Like I said, this has been great, but we're not done yet.
Okay.
We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
You are a newer AD, but just now taking on a new role. You shared with me you're going to be the interim AD for this next year, so congratulations with that. So I guess this might be a personal task. Your job is to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Kate's athletic director toolbox?
Oh boy. Let me think on this one for a minute. I think each state is different. For me, I've found that the OSA is a great resource. They have so many resources at your fingertips, but also just a phone call away, and they are happy to work through any sort of issue or problem. So I'd say the first thing is, do not be afraid to reach out to your association. Use them as a resource. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and make sure that you have all the information. And there are great things on there, game day, little checklists and all that stuff. So be, I think, important. And then I would say, going through different, there are just so many moving parts, I think, in your day. You got to have your coaches making sure your coaches are all certified and ready to go. You got to make sure for our students that they're all, they got their physicals and concussion forms in. And so kind of making sure those paperwork side things are taken care of as well as the on the field things. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm sure as the year unfolds, okay, you're going to be putting more and more items in your toolbox to share down the road. Okay.
Yeah. So I think too, and you want to make sure you have a good working relationship and good familiarity with your own school's community. I was fortunate enough to have a good understanding, having been alumni there, and actually one of my children attends there, and so a long kind of working relationship with Catlin. But I think if you're kind of new and stepping into a school, really making sure that you are forming those relationships with the grounds or with the enrollment or admissions office, or with your other admin teams, or with what is the school's kind of culture, and how does athletics fit into that, and really starting to build those relationships with everyone in the school, because athletics kind of reaches everyone in a school. And so kind of making sure too that you're starting to build those relationships, because that's what's kind of key, I think.
Absolutely. It's all about those relationships, because athletics touches everyone at the school, either as a participant or as a fan, a spectator. So great stuff. Kate, thank you again for being on the podcast today. Really great talking with you.
Yeah, thank you again for giving me the opportunity, and wish you the best in Florida with the rest of your school year too. I know everyone's just, I think, doing the best that they can. And so I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity, and wish you the best too with your school year. Okay.
For our listeners, remember, if you want to get in touch with Kate and get more information about their virtual athletic curriculum, correct me if I'm wrong here, williamsk@catlin.edu.
Yes, that's correct.
And to our listeners, thanks as always for tuning in. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD. Thanks again for listening. Remember, this Zoom recording will be available on the YouTube channel. That's the Educational Athletic Director FIAAA YouTube channel. Thanks again for listening.